Hello friends and welcome back for another Craft Your Stash Away project update. Today's is a bit different because I decided to use a process video as my update. And to start off, I'm going to be tracing my chipboard album onto my pattern paper. And this is one of those instances where it's do as I say, not as I do, because at this point I'm tracing it for the wrong side of this chipboard mini album. So if I were to go ahead and do this again, I would actually flip my paper over so it would match the actual side I'd like to cover on this chipboard mini album. But since this is a symmetrical mini album, I'm able to simply adjust my mistake by moving where the hole punch shall go. But this is the way I do it. I trace my shape, cut it out with scissors, and then I glue it on and then trim off the excess with an X-Acto knife, which you'll see here through this process. But the reason I'm doing a process video instead of a normal update video this Saturday is because I haven't done anything in my chipboard mini album. This is the only page I've done, and I did it here on Saturday morning because I thought it'd be fun to have a process video into the mix, and several of you have asked for a process video on how I adhere my paper to my chipboard album, as well as how I just go about decorating a chipboard album, because it's quite a different technique than a 12 by 12 seems to be. And then again, covering chipboard mini albums are a bit different than if I were to make a 12 by 12 page. So hopefully you guys enjoy this little tutorial. So once I have it chopped out with my scissors, I have the little hole that I made, the marks for the hole that I made for my hole punch, and then I just line that up and then I start gluing. So we're halfway through the month and I've only gotten 2 pages done on my chipboard mini album. Like I said in the previous update, it doesn't concern me at all. And if you guys haven't seen any of the episodes for Craft Your Stash Away, I'll have the playlist linked down below so you guys can binge watch those and catch up on this specific project or check out the other projects I focused on in the previous months. But we will have a new series coming up in June, and I hope you guys are excited to hear what that is. Because I've talked to my patrons a bit about it, and I know they're excited to see it come to fruition because they kind of already have the full-fledged idea of what it's going to be. But I'm excited to, finish another project through Craft Your Stash Away, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed the process as well. So when I glue down my chipboard, or my papers to my chipboard, I use both tape adhesive and liquid adhesive. And I do that in order to get a firm bond. I find that liquid adhesive does really well with chipboard, but I also want to point out that you might not want to put too much. So you can still get the bubbling effect that you would on a 12 by 12 or a traditional scrapbooking page if you put too much liquid adhesive. And if you're concerned about longevity, you could use red line tape or something that's a bit more, that claims to be a bit stronger. But you want to avoid using anything that's lumpy. So I find tape adhesive is still thin enough, and I find that liquid adhesive serves a good purpose, especially around the hole punch where you want to make sure that's adhered well before I were to put in like an eyelet or something like that. And then here is where I take a little knife and trim down the edges. And one of my viewers, her name is Lori, and she commented that her ideal way to do this is actually to adhere the chipboard directly to the paper first and then use her X-Acto knife to trim around the edges. I am really bad with an X-Acto knife. Actually, when I was doing this, I ripped my paper. I actually chipped off a bit of the chipboard, so it's not my strong suit. That's why I prefer to cut with my scissors first. But you could totally just do the chipboard, the trimming of the paper for the chipboard with an X-Acto knife if you prefer. And this isn't an exact X-Acto knife, it's just like one of those box cutters, but it's a thin one. I really like it. I picked it up from Blitzy before they went out of business, but I do think it works really, really well. And here I'm just going to start sanding down the edges, and this is something Lori also brought up in her comment, so thank you, Lori, for a great example again. I used an emery board, but there are sanding blocks on the market for this kind of purpose, but it helps just kind of smooth out the edge between the paper and the chipboard base, and it just gives it a smoother look. And again, Lori explained all this in her comment, so thanks again, Lori, for inspiring me to bring out my sander or my, emery board, which will work just the same. So now we can move on to the decoration of the actual page. So this is a photo that I cut down to almost 4 by 4. I didn't measure it, so I think it's a little bit less, but you get the idea. It's a picture of a Jumbotron, and this is the album that I'm giving to my brother. as a gift, and I am going to simply mat this onto some of that green paper that I used on the cover. And he was in the center of this Jumbotron photo, so I thought it was a really cool picture to take. And I just wanted to use more of these graduation stickers and graduation embellishments because I love using themed things when I can, and these are super themed. And again, that was sort of the whole point of the mini kit for this specific album, was to include those kind of bits and pieces so that they get used up faster and used for the things they're supposed to, like graduation. And I believe he's bought these, so yeah, we graduated in 2017, so I bought these after the fact, but in terms of why I bought them, it was to scrapbook mainly these photos. But luckily my niece is also graduating this year from high school, so I'll be able to use some of these for her stuff as well if I have any left over. So I pulled out this banner that says, actually I think it says "Your Time to Shine. This is your big day." And I decided to put foam adhesive on the back of it. And you'll also see that I pulled out a wood veneer arrow because I really wanted to point out that he is in this photo. Because again, if someone were to look at this and not know, I don't know who would look at it that doesn't know who he is, but for the instance of, you know, generations past or something like that, I wanted an arrow to help guide someone. But I also felt weird covering other people's faces in the photo, especially since maybe he might know them because they're in his class. But again, we'll see how it goes when he sees it. Maybe he will want to cover up more people's photos, and I can always add more arrows. So I pull out that Studio Calico arrow and make that work. I pull off another one from this Rad Grad sticker sheet, and it just says "Hats Off to You," which we don't have any good photos of the hat throwing ceremony, and I'm not actually sure if he actually threw his hat during it. So these kind of hats off things are going to be not saved for any specific page, so that works out well to use it on any page. And I went with such a generic background paper because the How to Kill a Kit with Style for the month uses the paper pad Hello Darlin', which is where this paper is from. But I also am running out of options for that paper pad to use in this album, and I talked about that last week in the update video as well. But I am confident that I'll be able to get this done. I just haven't had any time in my scrap room this week to sit down and do this, but I am planning on spending some more time this weekend and the next weekend to finish it off. Because once you get started on it, it goes relatively quickly. It's just been bits and pieces here and there that I've been able to sit down and craft, so that's what's taking me so long. But normally a project like this wouldn't take me as long, especially since you guys have seen the 2 previous months where I've took on much larger projects and completed them on time. So it's interesting to see how this one, which is a different style, and you know, maybe it is a little bit more work because we do have to sand down the edges and actually cut out the paper, whereas versus the other ones we're trimming the paper or not trimming at all and just, you know, getting straight to the scrapbooking section of it. But I'm going to glue down all these pieces. I use my liquid glue again, which is Scotch Quick Dry, in case you're wondering, nothing too crazy, and use my foam adhesive there on the back of that sentiment. And I thought it looked good like this, but I wanted to add a little bit more. So I decided to build out the cluster in the top left and use the word "Dream Big" because it's got that gold aspect to it, and I am mixing silver and gold on all these pages, which has been fun but also weird because the gold and silver on the sticker sheet is not necessarily gold and silver foil. It's just the color silver and gold, more like gray and a weird yellow brown, but I think it really works in terms of mixing and matching with the gold foil or a silver foil if I were to bring it into this specific page. And then I remember I had these Bella Boulevard puffy stickers, these little stars, and these were really popular at Tuesday Morning a while ago, and you know, I haven't seen them since that specific era, but they really worked well. So here is the completed page. I hope you guys enjoyed this update / this process video. I know several of you had questions about it, so hopefully those answers your questions. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out the playlist link down below so you guys can catch up on previous episodes, and make sure you subscribe for more videos. Bye guys!